Welcome to the course Business Analytics and Text Mining Modeling using Python. So, in previous lecture we started our discussion on some of the built-in capabilities that are there in Python environment. So, let us quickly go through some of the things that we discussed in the previous lecture. So, we will run some of these commands, so that one thing is that we will be able to recap of what we covered in the previous lecture, and also as we do some of the variables we would be using again in this lecture as well. So, first thing we talked about data structures, that is tuples, list, dicts and sets. So, let us start with this. So, we went through tuples here, few examples. I will just run through this, and in the meantime you can look at the commands and other examples that we have gone through. So, accessing, how to modify, and in place modification, concatenation. So, I think in the previous lecture we stopped somewhere here. So, we were talking about the concatenation. So, we can use the plus operator as we discussed in the previous lecture. So, for example, if we have these tuples top 5 and top 4. So, we can just write this line of code top 5 plus top 4, and you can see in the output both these tuples have been concatenated. Similarly, we were talking about there is another way to concatenate, which is involving repetition of elements. So, we have a tuple which is having, let us say, element 1 0 minus 1, and we would like to add a few more elements with the same values. That means, we would like to repeat them over and over again multiple times. So, that we can do through this particular mechanism, where we can type top 3 and then asterisk operator and then 3. So, in a sense we are multiplying all the elements, we are reproducing those elements. So, let us run this. You can see top 3 had 3 elements 1 0 and minus 1, and then they have been repeated thrice. So, we have 3 groups of these 3 elements. So, in this fashion also we can perform concatenation when repetition is involved. Then next thing that we were discussing is about unpacking tuples. So, you can see in the left hand side we have ABC as tuple, and if we want to assign values to these these elements ABC, on the right hand side we can have any initialized tuple. For example, top 1 we have already initialized. So, if I just run this, and if I want to find out the value for C, you can see here we have 10. So, in this fashion we can unpack tuple, and some of the variables, some of the elements can be assigned values using this unpacking. Similarly, if we have nested tuples also, and there also we kind of want to do similar kind of thing. So, another example here you can see we have one tuple xyz and another tuple pqrs, and then we have tuple of these 2 tuples, and on the right hand side we had previously created nested tuple. So, if I run this, individual elements of these tuples, they would be assigned those values. So, if I run again for q, you can see the value 6 has been assigned to this particular element. Similarly, we talked about swapping. Swapping variable names is quite easy. In a one line code sentence you can do your swapping, which typically usually we do in other programming language by writing 3 sentences x, y, then y, z, and in that fashion. Here using tuple, this particular data structure, in one go we can achieve this. So, you can see here on the right hand side in this statement we have a b c, this is the tuple. Now, if we want to swap a with c, then what we have to do is in the left hand side you can see we are typing c b a. So, in a sense a and c have been swapped, and if we run this then the values would be, variable names would be swapped, and you can see if I run this, then c is displaying the value that was recorded in a. So, in a sense we have achieved swapping. Now, let us move to the next aspect, that is iterating over sequences of tuples or list. So, this can also be easily done. So, let us say we have sequence like this. So, in this example we have this sequence, this is a list with the 3 tuple elements 1 2 3, then 4 5 6, then 7 8 9, and here we are running a loop. So, you can see how we can iterate over this sequence. So, in the loop you can see x, y, z, this tuple we will be iterating over the sequence, which is again consisting of which is a list of 3 tuples having 3 elements each. So, in this fashion, any block of code where we require to iterate over 2-3 variables or 2-3 variables are involved, and some iteration has to be done, we can use loop and then tuple. So, in just for loop, and within that just one line, and we are easily able to iterate this, which is for other programming language this will take few more lines to achieve. So, if I run this, you can see the print statement that we have. So, till now we have not discussed print function in more detail, that we will do in coming lectures, but right now you can see that we are trying to print this statement multiple times. So, if I run this, you can see for the first tuple we have got these values assigned x1, y2, z3. Similarly, the second print it has x4, y5, z6, third print. So, in this fashion we can iterate over sequences of tuples or list. There might be certain scenarios which will require us to return multiple values from a function. So, that can be easily done again using tuples. So, here in this example I have defined a function f, it takes 3 variables as arguments x, y, z, and then we are doing certain computation here. X x is being assigned the multiplication of x into y, and y is being assigned the multiplied values of y and z, and similarly for z into x. So, here again we are returning these 3 values x, y, and z, the updated values of these 3 variables. So, again you can see in a tuple, in the form of tuple data structure, we are able to return this value. So, once we define this function, you can see in the next line we are assigning the return values to a new tuple def. So, this and the appropriate values, the updated values x, y, z within the function, once they are computed, they are going to be assigned to this tuple and the elements that is d, e and f. So, if I run this and let us see the values, you can see 60, 12 and 120. So, those computations have been performed and we get the updated values here. Let us move forward. Now, some situation will require us to plucking a few elements from a tuple. So, we might not want to use all of the elements that are part of a tuple, rather we would like to create a new tuple or just use few elements from a tuple. So, that is something that can be done. For this we need to use this asterisk operator. So, let us take this example of this tuple 6, where we have these 7 elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if we are interested in just plucking the first 2 elements. So, in this case first 2 elements in this tuple 6 are 1 and 2. So, we can write our code in this fashion. You can see a, b and then asterisk rest. So, rest is not this is not a special keyword, it is just the remaining elements we are giving them as this name rest. So, nothing is special about this name, the main thing is this operator. So, asterisk operator and then the name for the remaining elements of the tuple. So, in this fashion we can formulate this particular code expression a, b and then a comma b comma asterisk rest. Now, what will happen is the first 2 values, first 2 elements from this tuple 6, they would be assigned to these 2 elements a and b. So, if I run this, you can see values of a, b 1 and 2, they have been appropriately plugged from the existing tuple, that is top 6. Now, if you want to look at what is there in rest, so that also something that we can run and find out. So, you can see in the rest tuple. So, this, in the rest what we have is a list of the remaining elements 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, it is not sometimes we might require to just pluck the last elements from the tuple. So, that can also be done. Here you can see the code expression has been modified slightly. Now, in the initial last 2 elements I have mentioned c and d, and the the remaining the part of the tuple I am denoting by asterisk rest 1. So, in this fashion we can pluck out the last 2 elements of the tuple. So, let us run this and let us find out the values of C and D. So, you can see 6 and 7. So, in this fashion, so whether from the start or from the end, we can pluck out the elements that we want. Now, again we want to find out what is the part of rest 1. So, you can see a list of these remaining 5 elements starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, some situation might also require us to plug the elements in the middle. So, that can also be done, especially if we know from where that asterisk variable has to be expressed at which point. So, here in this example we can say that we can see that A comma B and then asterisk rest 2 then comma C. If I run this, so you can see rest 2 and if I run this, so 3, 4, 5, 6 is here and the value of 6 is 7. So, in this fashion also we can plug the required elements from a tuple. Now, let us move on. Now, let us talk about just one tuple method that we will discuss right now. So, if we want to count the number of elements that are part of a tuple. So, you can see tup4 we had previously created, and in this count method what is happening is we are counting how many times this particular value m is appearing. So, if we want to count that particular value m, how many times it is appearing in that tuple. So, tup4 dot count. So, this will give us the output. So, here if we run this, you can see tup4 dot count and m is appearing twice. So, we go back to our previous result where we had created the tup4. So, we can immediately verify this. So, we can see here, let us go back here. So, you can see in this place output 6 that we can see here. Here you can see m is coming over twice 1 and 2 here. So, that is why that in this fashion we can find out the element, a particular element, how many times it is appearing in a tuple. So, count method will give us that particular output. Let us move on. So, now we come to the next built-in structure that is part of Python, that is list. So, what is a list about? This is a variable length mutable sequence of Python objects. So, mutability, immutability we have discussed before also. So, tuple is a immutable Python object, while list is a mutable one. So, therefore, of course, it will have variable length to allow this to happen. Now, how we can create a list? So, this we have been doing from the start of our discussion on Python. We can use the brackets operator and within that comma separated values. So, we can create a list with a comma separated sequence of values and using brackets operator. So, let us take this example again, v1 1 comma 3 comma none comma 5 comma true. So, different kind of data types we can combine in a list combine in a comma separated sequence, and in this fashion we can create a list. This is something that we have been doing all along while our discussion on Python. So, you can see this list has been created. Now, it is also possible to convert some of the Python objects into a list. For this we need to use this function called list. Here you can see that example that we are giving is we are converting a tuple into a list. So, if we look at list and tuple now you are able to see we have gone through the tuple aspects as well, and now we are discussing list also. Previous lectures also we have seen the usage of these two data structures. So, you can see both are sequences, and semantically the way they are to be manipulated, worked with in Python, they are very similar and can be used interchangeably. So, a list function can easily convert this tuple 6 into a new Python object that could be a list. So, here we are using list function. So, v2 list tup 6. So, this will create a new Python object. So, you can see that tuple 6 has been converted into a list. Now, accessing list element, that is something that we have been doing all along. So, again bracket operator. So, here V2 and in the bracket we can specify the the element the index that we want to access. Remember the most of these sequences in Python, they are 0 indexed. So, when we say V2 4, so it is actually the 5th element that we want to access. So, if I run this, I will get the value of 5th element in this list V2, and that is actually 5. Now, we can modify, because this is a mutable list or mutable Python object as we have discussed before. So, we can modify any of these any of the element of this particular list V2. So, let us take this one V2 4, this 5th element indexed by the value 4. So, we can change that from 5 to a string value, that is Omkar. So, if I run this, you can see the list has changed. Now, we have the elements as 1, 2, 3, 4 and Omkar and then 6, 7. So, in this fashion we can modify the individual elements of a list as well, because list being the mutable Python objects. We have talked about a range function also. So, range function, if you can see here in this next example, so we can if you want to so range function will typically materialize when we are using it with a list or in a for loops. Here you can see if I run this range 6. So, 6 values starting from 0, we get a list made of those 6 elements starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, let us talk about adding and removing elements in a list. So, if we want to let us first talk about adding. So, at the end of the list, so we can use this function append, so that we have used before also. So, V2 is a list, dot append is the method, and om is the new element that we would like to add into this list. So, if I run this, and you can compare the previous elements, previous values of elements in the V2, and you can see the last at the end of this list a new element has been added om. If you want to add an element at a specific location in the list, that can also be done. So, we can use the insert function here. So, in the next line of code you can see V2 dot insert, and then in the parenthesis we are passing on 2 arguments. The first argument is telling the specific location, the index of the specific location where this new element is to be inserted. So, you can see nama we would like to insert here. So, if I run this, you can see second element has been second elements which was earlier which was earlier 2, now has been changed to this string value nama. So, in this fashion we can modify or add elements in a list. Now, let us move to the removing aspect. So, if we want to remove a particular element at a particular index, so we can use the pop method here. So, V2 is the list, V2 dot pop the method, it will have access to all the objects that are within that list. So, V2 dot pop, and we are giving the index. So, in this case I am taking 2 here. So, 2 means that this is index 2, that means third element is supposed to be removed. So, if I run this line of code, you can see the popped element value is 2, this is actually the third element in the list, as you can confirm from the previous output number 37. So, and we can again have a look at the values that are part of this list right now. So, V2 you can see 1, then nama, and then 2 is gone, and then 3, 4 and other values. Now, it is also possible to remove some of these elements by value. Now, whenever we are trying to remove an element from a list by value, there can be more than one instances of that value occurring in that list. So, therefore, if we use this remove method here, so the first instance is going to be removed. So, you can see here V2 dot remove and 6. So, here if we look at it, that particular element, the first element having value 6 is going to be removed. So, if I run this, you can see 1 nama 3 4 Omkar, and after that we had 6, as you can confirm from output 39, and you can see now it is gone. Let us move on. Now, sometimes we might be required to find out whether a particular value is part of a list or not. So, how do we perform this kind of check? So, we have two keywords in Python, in and not in. So, they can tell us whether a particular whether a particular a value is present in the list or not. So, let us see 2 in V2. So, as you remember that we have popped out 2 before. So, if I run this, we will get false because 2 is not part of this list. Similarly, ohm, if I ohm not in V2, but we can see from the output 40 that ohm is there part of the list. So, this again should also come out as false. Now, just like we talked about the concatenation of tuple, list can also be concatenated using the plus operator. So, V1 and V2, these two lists we have already created. So, let us apply this plus operator V1 plus V2. Now, you would see if I run this in the output 43, you can see all the elements of V1 and V2, they have been concatenated in that particular order itself. Let us move on. Now, sometimes we would require adding multiple elements in a list. So, that can also be done. For this we can use the extend method. So, V1 is the list that we have already have. So, we can use this extend method. So, we can write V1 dot extend, and then within parentheses we can pass on the list which will consist all the elements that we would like to add. So, here we can you can see that we are adding Om Namah Shivaya, these three this new list consisting of these three elements, and if I run this, then you would see that the existing list would be extended by these three additional elements. So, if I find out the value, you can see that 1 3 none 5. So, these three elements have been extended. Now, let us move on to the next aspect. So, this is about sorting the elements of a list. So, for this also we have a sort method that is available to us. So, let us take this example of this list V3. So, it has these elements these values 19, 75, 53, 23 and 7 and then 11. So, we can use sort function to produce a list with sorted values. So, V3 dot sort, and we do not need to pass an argument because the list is to be sorted, the elements of this list are to be sorted. Now, if we do this, apply sort method on this, you can see in the output 46 you can see the elements have been sorted. So, we have first 7, then 11, then 19, then 23, then we have 53 and then we have 75. So, in this fashion we can perform sorting the elements of a list. Now, sometimes we would like to sort the elements of a list using a sort key, and this particular key can be a function which will return values to be used for sorting. So, this can also be done. So, let us take an example here again. So, in this case let us take the example of this list V4, and here we can see that we have 4 elements which are part of this list: Shivaya, Om, Namah and chanting. And if we want to, so one thing is we are taking the elements here are string values, and so probably we would like to more often than not we would like to sort these elements by length of those string. So, when we are talking about sorting elements using a sort key. So, here this key can be a function, this function can be length len in particular, and this can be used to find out the length of these element strings, and based on the length of these element string values we can generate a sorted list here. So, what we are doing here is in the next line of code, first let me initialize this list V4. Now, what we are doing is V4 and then we calling sort function, and then we are in the arguments we are passing just one argument, that is key. This is named argument here, and key and length is the function that we would like to use as a sort key. So, if I run this and access the updated list here, you can see now the list of these string values have been sorted accordingly according to the length of those string values. So, Om with just 2 character comes first, then followed by Namah having 5 character, then followed by Siva which is also having which is having 6 characters, and then chanting which is having more than 6 characters. So, in this fashion also we can perform sorting. Sometimes in string processing as we will see in later lectures that this kind of thing would be required. So, as you can see it can be easily done. Now, let us talk about sometimes we would like to maintain the maintain a particular sorted list, but we would also be required. So, why we would have to maintain a sorted list? We would be adding new elements to the sorted list, but we would like to keep that sorted all along. So, next thing is that we would like to discuss is inserting a new element into a sorted list. So, how to keep list sorted and still be able to insert new elements. So, we can use this bisect module functions here. So, first we need to import this module bisect, and this will give us this function this function bisect here, and it will allow us based on the index of the location we can insert the particular new element. So, here let us take the example of this V3. So, you can see V3 is already sorted. So, you can see in the output number 46, 7, 11, 19, 23, 53 and 75. So, in this if we would like to insert this new element which is having value 17. So, it should be between 11 and 19. So, if we use this function bisect here dot bisect. So, if I run this, so it is giving me the index location where this new element having value 17 is to be inserted. So, index 2 means after it should be the third element in that list. So, you can see after 7 and 11 it can be inserted. Now, this module also gives us the actual function which would be more practical to insert the list in the appropriate place. So, the next line of code is about the same: insert the element at an appropriate index into the sorted list. So, for this we can use this function bisect dot insert, and you can see V3 is the list and 17. So, if I run this, you would see that this new element 17 have been appropriately inserted into this sorted list. So, now what we have in the output 50 is 7, 11, then 17 and then 19, 23, 53 and 75. So, the earlier function bisect it gave us the index where this new element is to be inserted, and the insert function is rather method is giving us the shorted list after performing the insertion. So, we would like to stop at this point, and in the next lecture we will pick up our discussion from here only, and we will talk about slicing. Slicing is something we have briefly discussed before. We will talk about slightly in slight more detail in the next lecture. Thank you.